Hi, this is John Hoomes, the General and Artistic Director of the Nashville Opera. I want to welcome you today to this podcast for Rossini's Cinderella. We have just begun rehearsals this week. We have finished staging Act 1. We're going to move into Act 2 later today. But we have some of the artists here from Cinderella, and I would like them to introduce themselves and tell you the roles they're singing, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the show. So let's start over here with Mr. McKern.
I'm Corey McKern, singing the role of Dandini. I'm a baritone. It's my debut in this role. Very happy to be doing it.
Okay.
I'm Javier Abreu. I am singing the Prince Ramiro, and this is my debut with Nashville Opera, and I've done this role a couple times.
And I'm Leah Wool, and I'm singing Cinderella, and this is also my Nashville Opera debut, and my fourth time singing this role, which I love.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's stay with you for a second.
Okay.
So tell us, so you're singing the title role of Cinderella.
Yes, sir.
What other roles are in your rep? Things like Cinderella or other things?
I've also sung Massenet's Cinderella.
Really?
Rosina, yeah,
Okay.
I have.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's funky. Okay.
Yeah. Also, Rosina, The Barber of Seville, Hansel and Gretel.
Ah, gotcha.
I've also done one Isabella in The Italian Girl in Algiers. Gosh, what else? Erica and Vanessa. That's one I'd love to do again someday. I've also gotten to do some really cool things lately, like a premiere of a Philip Glass opera called Kepler, about the astronomer
were you in that?
Kepler.
Okay, I didn't know
yeah,
that.
at
Okay.
Spoleto Festival USA. So I've gotten to do a lot of really interesting and varied rep.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Javier, I can't say your name as well as you can.
Oh,
It's great. say it one more time for me.
Javier Abreu.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well,
Okay, go ahead.
just sound it out. What's the question? What
other roles do you do or do you like to do?
I do a lot of Rossini. Like Leah, this is my fourth Cinderella. Like Leah, I did do the Prince in Massenet's Cinderella when I was in college. But I do mostly barbers also. I've done quite a few Italiani in Algiers. And I tend to do a lot of contemporary opera as well. I've done a few world premieres. I was involved in that Before Night Falls that was premiered a few years ago in Texas.
Oh, yeah, sure, in Fort Worth.
In Fort Worth, yeah. And but I tend to do a lot of comedy. I'm very buoyant, and so that plays well with the characters that I end up doing. So, but yeah, it's just a lot of Rossini and a lot of new things that, come around.
Okay. And Corey, this is your first time doing this role
Yes.
of Dandini, but you've sung Figaro in...
I've sung Barber
Yeah.
a few times, and I've done a lot of Bohèmes, Marcello and Bohème, and The Count and Figaro, both of which I've done here. But really, as a baritone, you're a little more versatile in a way. There's in all French, German, and Italian, there's roles that are suitable for my type of baritone. So I've been very fortunate to do a lot of different style things, everything from Italian comedy like this to, we talked about, I covered the title role of Wozzeck, which is quite different than
Just a little. Just a little, maybe.
Wow.
So, yeah, but I always say, everyone always asks, what's your favorite role? And I always say, and I always mean the role that I'm working on currently, because it's, we're very lucky to get to do different things all the time, and there's so many great pieces, it's really wonderful to be exposed to them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk a little about the show, about Cinderella, Rossini's Cinderella. Because we've done this show once here in Nashville before. It's been a long time. It's been over a decade ago. And it's about time that this came back here, this piece. And we, for some reason, we haven't done a great deal of Rossini here. We've done Barber of Seville a couple of times, actually. But I find this piece very different in a lot of ways. And since you all have sung, roles in both of those shows, Barber of Seville and Cenerentola, and it's the same composer, but I find them very, very different. And one reason, let me start, one reason is in Barber of Seville, from a dramatic point of view, it's more, for me, it's more of an out-and-out comedy. And a lot of the characters in that are based more on the commedia characters, and so it's a little more clowny, more slapstick maybe, a little more goofy in spots intentionally, an out-and-out comedy. This piece is different because it's a comedy. It certainly is a comic opera, but it has moments of real emotion and real feeling. And Cinderella in this is not just this little one-dimensional cartoon character. She has a great deal of different emotions, depth of feeling, and a lot of sympathy from the audience. So how, just I guess I'm saying, I'm going to ask you just to contrast this role with some of the other Rossini that you've done.
I guess it's easier to say that this Cinderella, Rossini's Cinderella, is so soulful. And even from the very beginning of the piece, Cinderella's goodness shines through in the way she reacts to a beggar who comes by the house. You know, her sisters are so nasty, and, you know, get out of here, you know, you're smelly, you're dirty, get out of here. And she says, you know, if I would rip my own heart out to help somebody, an unfortunate person. I mean, and she herself has so little. She has nothing. Her stepfather is terrible to her. Her stepsisters are terrible. So there's this incredible pathos from the very beginning. You see this stark contrast of this genuine sweet girl in this terrible situation. And of course, Rosina also is a girl in a terrible situation, but she's so much spunkier. She's very cunning. And I don't know that Cinderella necessarily has that much cunning. She's just, you know, the soul of goodness. It's the triumph of goodness, you know, as the alternative title. So I think that's one major difference. And just overall that the piece is so soulful and heartfelt.
And very melodic.
Extremely
and
melodic.
You have some great melodies in this, for sure. And as far as the gentleman here, because both of you have sung the leads in the Barber of Seville, and both of you have sung now, or singing the leads in this. For me, as an outsider looking at your roles, this sounds a lot more challenging musically than Barber of Seville. And maybe I'm wrong, but it sounds, there's much more, to me, much more coloratura. There's much more demand purely on vocal styling and things. So would you talk a little about that from a musical point of view? We can start with you, Javier, if you wish. The differences musically, say, in Prince Ramiro and Almaviva.
It requires more agility and control, let's say, in terms of the coloratura and things like that, than Almaviva. Almaviva is a beautiful role. It's not as intense.
Right. Well, and it sounds that way. Corey?
You know, Barber is challenging in certain ways. I love singing the aria, but it's a notoriously difficult aria, the Largo al Factotum. And the first duet with tenor in Barber is long and requires a lot of stamina. But this piece, this being my first time to do it, you're exactly right. It takes a lot of agility and concentration, and it's very precise. And the difficult part is that it has to seem so easy. There are all these, so many runs and very precise cadenzas, and it has to come off with just a flourish that's, you know, a piece of cake. So getting to that point, I'm sure in another 3 or 4 months I'll be ready. So don't worry. But it's been certainly a fun challenge.
And ideally, kind of like Javier was saying, ideally it does sound, to a listener, it sounds pretty effortless when it works.
Yes.
Right.
When it doesn't work, it does not.
Yes, that's true.
But he's written it in such a way that when it really works and everything clicks together, especially ensembles, and some of the ensembles are amazing for the amount of text and notes crammed into the ensemble.
Absolutely.
And it's all got to work like some fine precision little very fancy music box, and it's got to work, and everything connects. It's amazing stuff. It's very different than doing a show, you know, middle period Verdi or something like that, just because of the style of this piece. It's it's pretty remarkable. Anyway, thanks for being here today. We're just I just want a chance to say hello and have everybody hear you on this. We open Cinderella very soon. We open actually on January the 25th on a Friday at TPAC in the Polk Theater. We have 3 performances, Friday, Sunday matinee at 2 o'clock, and then we close on a Tuesday night at 7. So we want to invite you to come and see this piece. You don't get to see Rossini's Cinderella a lot. Like I said, it was done here over 10 years ago. It's a great piece for the entire family, very melodic, very beautiful, and very touching. So thank you all for being here today.
Thank you.
And we hope to see you at the opera.